Imagine holding sand in your hand. The tighter you grip, the faster it slips away. That's how life works. The more you try to control it, the more it escapes your grasp. You cling to people, to plans, to the idea of how things should be, and in the process, you suffocate your own peace. The truth is, you were never meant to hold everything together. You were meant to flow. The Buddha taught that freedom is not found by gaining more, but by releasing what no longer serves your soul. When you finally let go of control, of fear, of the need to be understood, something miraculous happens. Life begins to move in your favor. The right people appear. The right paths open. The universe breathes with you instead of against you. Because letting go is not losing. It's remembering who you truly are when you no longer carry what's not yours to hold. 1. Let go of control. Life knows the way. The need to control everything is one of the most exhausting habits of the human mind. We plan every detail, worry about every outcome, and fight against every change, believing that if we just try hard enough, we can make life bend to our will. But life is not something to be controlled. It is something to be understood and moved with. Just as the ocean cannot be commanded by the waves, existence cannot be mastered by our expectations. When you believe you're in control, you create tension between what you want and what is. That tension becomes suffering. Buddhism teaches that the root of pain lies in attachment, and control is simply another form of attachment. You cling to how things should be, to how people must act, and to how plans ought to unfold. But the truth is, life does not follow the script you've written. The seasons change without asking your permission. People evolve without your approval, and the future unfolds in its own mysterious way. When you accept that, you begin to breathe again. You start to see that peace was never in control. It was in surrender. Letting go of control doesn't mean you give up or become careless. It means you do your best. You act with wisdom, and then you release your grip on the outcome. You still plant the seed, but you stop trying to pull the flower out of the soil before it's ready. You still build your dreams, but you stop forcing them to appear overnight. The Buddha's wisdom reminds us that everything happens in its natural rhythm, not too soon, not too late, but exactly when it's meant to. Think of a river. It doesn't try to push against the rocks or resist the curves in its path. It flows, gently but powerfully, trusting that every bend leads it closer to the ocean. When you live like that, when you move with life instead of against it, peace returns. You stop fighting reality, and you begin to dance with it. That's what it means to trust the flow, to believe that even if you can't see the whole journey, the direction is right. There is a quiet power in surrender. It doesn't mean weakness, it means alignment. It's when you understand that forcing outcomes only creates resistance, while trust creates harmony. Life always knows what it's doing, even when you don't. Some doors close to protect you. Some delays occur to prepare you. Some endings happen to make space for new beginnings. When you stop trying to control the river and start flowing with it, you realize something profound. Life has always been on your side. So let go. Let go of the urge to micromanage every detail. Let go of the fear that things won't work out. Let go of the belief that peace can only come when everything goes your way. Peace comes when you allow life to unfold exactly as it is, knowing that every twist, every pause, every wave is part of a perfect rhythm. The moment you release your grip, life begins to carry you toward the ocean of everything you were meant to experience. 2. Let go of people who no longer align with your path. One of the most painful yet necessary lessons in life is learning to let go of people who no longer walk in harmony with your soul. You see, not everyone who starts with you is meant to finish with you. Some relationships are bridges that take you to the next phase of your journey. Once you cross, their purpose is complete. Yet we often hold on tightly, afraid of losing something that feels familiar, even when that familiarity is quietly draining us. But true growth requires space, and sometimes that space is created by distance. We hold on because we confuse attachment with love, but love in its purest form never traps or suffocates. It flows freely. Detachment says, "I need you to be happy." Love says, "I want you to be happy, even if it's not with me." The Buddha taught that clinging leads to suffering, and nowhere is that more evident than in our relationships. When we cling to people who no longer nurture our peace, we are not showing love, we are showing fear. The fear of being alone, the fear of change, the fear of loss. But the truth is, nothing real is ever lost. People don't leave your life, they simply take a different seat in your story. Sometimes, those you thought were meant to stay forever were only sent to awaken something within you. Maybe they came to teach patience, compassion, or strength. Maybe they came to show you what love is not, so you could recognize what love truly is. But when the lesson is learned, clinging to them only creates pain. The energy that once lifted you now begins to weigh you down. Conversations that once inspired you now exhaust you. You start to feel like you're forcing something that used to flow naturally, and that's your spirit telling you it's time to let go. Letting go of people doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you care enough about your own peace to stop forcing connections that no longer serve your growth. You can bless someone and still walk away. You can wish them well without wishing them back. There is power in quiet detachment, not from hatred, but from understanding that your journey and theirs are no longer aligned. In Buddhism, this is called up-keka, equanimity, the calm acceptance that everything and everyone has their own path to walk. If you cling to people out of fear of emptiness, you miss the beauty of solitude, because solitude is not loneliness. It's the sacred space where you rediscover who you are without external noise. It's where you remember that peace is not found in others, but within yourself. And when you reconnect with your own stillness, the right people, those who vibrate on the same frequency of peace, will naturally enter your life. You won't have to chase them, prove your worth, or beg for their presence. They will recognize your light, because it will mirror their own. So let go with grace. Don't curse those who left or resent those who grew distant. Thank them for the part they played in your becoming. Every person you meet shapes you in some way. Some polish you gently, others carve you sharply, but all of them prepare you for the higher version of yourself. When you release with gratitude instead of bitterness, you don't lose anyone. You simply rise to a level where not everyone can follow. And remember, those who truly belong in your life will never need to be chased or controlled. They will stay because their soul feels at home with yours. So stop clinging to hands that no longer reach for you. Open your palms and let life fill them with peace, purpose, and people who match your evolution. Because when you let go of those who no longer align with your path, you don't walk alone, you walk lighter, freer, and closer to who you were always meant to be. 3. Let go of the past. It no longer exists. The past is a shadow, a memory echoing inside your mind. It has no form, no power, no life of its own, except the one you give it through your attention. Yet, many of us live as prisoners of what has already ended. We replay conversations, relive heartbreaks, and revisit failures as though doing so could somehow change their outcome. But the truth is, the past is gone. It exists only as energy within your thoughts, and the more you feed it, the heavier it becomes. You cannot step into the light of today while holding on to yesterday's ghosts. Buddhism teaches that attachment to the past is one of the deepest roots of suffering. We cling to what was, to who we were, to what we had, to how things used to be, And in doing so, we resist the natural flow of impermanence. The Buddha said, "Change is never painful, only resistance to change is painful." Everything in existence is constantly shifting. The seasons, the stars, the tides, even the cells in your body, nothing remains still. The pain you feel when you think of the past does not come from what happened. It comes from your refusal to accept that it has already passed. Sometimes we hold on because we think we owe the past something, a second chance, a better reaction, a closure we never received. But life is not a storybook where every chapter ends neatly. Some endings are abrupt because they were never meant to be complete. The lesson was in the interruption itself, in learning to live without closure, in accepting that not every wound needs to be healed by the one who caused it. Healing begins the moment you stop looking backward for peace and start creating it here, now, in this moment. Think about a wound on your skin. If you keep scratching it open, it never heals. Your mind works the same way. When you constantly revisit painful memories, you reopen the wound again and again. Forgiveness, whether for others or for yourself, is the medicine that allows it to close. Forgiveness does not mean saying what happened was right. It means refusing to let it define you any longer. It means saying, "I deserve peace more than I deserve to stay angry." And the moment you say that, you begin to reclaim your power. Letting go of the past is not about erasing your memories or pretending the pain never existed. It's about learning to honor what happened without letting it rule your present. Every heartbreak, every loss, every mistake carries wisdom. Those experiences shaped you. They softened you where you needed empathy and hardened you where you needed strength. They carved the contours of your character and helped you understand the depth of your own resilience. You are not who you were back then. You have evolved. But to see who you have become, you must stop staring at the reflection of who you used to be. In Buddhism, the present moment is called the only reality. The past and future are illusions. One has disappeared, the other has not yet arrived. When you bring your awareness fully into this moment, the grip of the past loosens naturally. You realize that the pain was never in the event itself, but in your attachment to it. You realize that the story you've been replaying was just a memory, not your identity. And slowly, like mist under sunlight, the weight of what once hurt you begins to fade. Imagine a traveler carrying a heavy bag filled with stones from every place they've been. At first it seems meaningful, each stone representing a memory, a lesson, a part of the journey. But as they continue walking, the weight grows unbearable. Eventually, they must stop, open the bag, and let the stones fall to the earth. Only then can they move forward freely. The same is true for you. Every regret you hold, every resentment you nurture, every if only you whisper, they are stones in your bag. You cannot climb to higher peace while carrying them. When you let go of the past, you are not losing your story, you are reclaiming your life. You begin to see beauty where there was once bitterness. You start to feel lightness where there was once guilt. The present moment opens like a window, and through it, fresh air enters your soul. The sunlight of awareness dries up the tears of yesterday. You start to smile again, not because everything is perfect, but because you finally stop trying to rewrite what cannot be rewritten. So forgive what hurt you. Bless what ended. Thank the people who left. They all played their part in shaping your becoming. Your past is not your prison. It is your teacher. You do not live there anymore. You are here, alive, breathing, free to begin again. The moment you stop dragging the past behind you, life begins to move effortlessly forward. And in that movement, you discover something beautiful. Peace was never in the past you were trying to fix. It was always in the present. You were too distracted to feel. 4. Let go of expectations. the source of all disappointment. Expectation is a quiet poison that seeps into the soul, disguised as hope, ambition, or love. It whispers, "If they truly cared, they'd understand me." It says, "If I work hard enough, life will reward me the way I want." It convinces you that happiness is a destination waiting on the other side of everything going your way. But when reality unfolds differently, as it always does, the same expectation that once motivated you becomes the seed of frustration, bitterness, and pain. The Buddha taught that craving and expectation are two sides of the same illusion, the illusion that we can control the outcome of life. And when that illusion breaks, suffering is born. We expect people to love us the way we love them. We expect friends to stay loyal, opportunities to arrive on schedule, and life to reward effort with results. But the truth is, people change. Circumstances shift. Life doesn't always align with our plans, not because it is cruel, but because it is wiser. Expectation is rooted in the belief that you know what's best for you. Reality, on the other hand, often reveals that what you thought you needed was never meant for you. How many times have you looked back at something you once desperately wanted and realized, "Thank God that didn't happen"? That's the power of letting go. It allows life to surprise you with something better than your imagination. The Buddha's teaching on suffering, dukkha, begins right here, the gap between how we want life to be and how it truly is. When we expect perfection, we fight with reality. When we expect permanence, we deny impermanence. And when we expect happiness to come from outcomes, we miss the truth that happiness comes from acceptance. The root of peace is not in getting what you want, but in being at peace with what is. The moment you release your grip on how things should be, the beauty of how they are begins to appear. Think of a flower. It does not demand the sun to rise faster or the rain to fall at a specific hour. It blooms when the time is right, because it trusts the process. In contrast, we rush life. We measure our worth through timelines. By this age, I should have achieved that. By this moment, I should be there. But the universe doesn't move according to your calendar. It moves according to your readiness. Every delay is not denial. It's preparation. Every detour is not rejection. It's redirection. When you stop expecting and start trusting, patience becomes peace. Expectations also ruin relationships. You begin to measure people not by who they are, but by what they should be. You stop seeing them clearly and start seeing a version you created in your mind. When they fail to live up to that image, because no one can perfectly fit into another person's expectations, disappointment poisons the connection. True love is freedom. It is allowing others to be themselves without the burden of meeting your standards. The Buddha taught compassion not as control but as understanding. To love without conditions, to give without keeping score, and to be kind without expectation of return. When you expect, you live in the future. You attach your peace to something that hasn't happened yet. And in doing so, you rob yourself of the joy that exists right now. Imagine holding a cup of water. The tighter you grip it, the more likely it is to spill. Expectations are the same. The harder you cling to them, the more peace you lose. When you loosen your hold, when you allow life to flow naturally, you discover that what you once feared losing was never truly yours to begin with. There is a deep wisdom in the art of letting things be. It doesn't mean you stop dreaming or stop striving. It means you give your best effort and then surrender the outcome. It means you trust that if something is meant for you, it will arrive. Not through force, but through alignment. This is the difference between attachment and aspiration. Attachment says, "It must happen this way." Aspiration says, "I am open to whatever is meant for me." One leads to tension, the other leads to peace. Letting go of expectations also means freeing yourself from the pressure to live up to others' standards. Many people live their entire lives chasing approval, the perfect career, the perfect image, the perfect words. But the more you try to please everyone, the further you drift from your own truth. When you stop expecting validation, you return to your authentic self. You start doing things not for applause, but because they align with your soul. You start walking your path, not for recognition, but for inner freedom. In Buddhism, this state of non-expectation is not apathy. It is awakened peace. It's when you live fully in the moment, without needing it to be different. You eat simply, and it's enough. You breathe deeply, and it's enough. You exist, and it's enough. Freedom begins when you stop saying, "I'll be happy when," and start realizing, "I am at peace now," because life is not something to be chased. It is something to be experienced. Look around you. The sun doesn't expect gratitude, yet it rises every day. The rain doesn't demand applause, yet it nourishes life. The trees don't expect the wind to be gentle, yet they sway with grace. Nature flows without expectation, and that's why it never suffers. You are part of that same nature. When you align with that rhythm, you stop demanding and start appreciating. So let go of how you thought life should be. Release the idea that joy only comes when everything falls into place. The truth is, joy was never missing. It was simply hidden beneath layers of expectation. When you stop trying to force life into your plan, you allow it to unfold into something far greater than you imagined. You realize that peace was never waiting at the end of your expectations. It was resting silently beneath them all along. The moment you let go, you don't lose control, you gain clarity. You start noticing the blessings you once overlooked. You start breathing deeper, smiling easier, living lighter. You realize that the more you expect, the less you experience. But the more you accept, the more you receive. And in that stillness of acceptance, life finally reveals its quiet truth. Everything you've ever needed has always been right here, within you in this very moment. Let go of your ego, the illusion of me. The ego is one of the most deceptive illusions we carry through life. It's that quiet voice in your head that constantly says, "I, me, mine." It's the part of you that wants to be right, that wants to be seen, that wants to win. It feeds on separation, the idea that you are different, superior, or inferior to others. The ego builds walls around your heart and calls them protection. It convinces you that your identity is your possessions, your opinions, your status, your reputation. But deep down, you are none of these things. They are temporary masks you wear in the play of life. The real you, the observer behind the thoughts, is vast, silent, and unshaken. When you begin to let go of your ego, you don't lose yourself. You discover who you truly are. Buddhism teaches that the ego, or atta, is the root of separation and suffering. The Buddha often compared it to a mirage, something that looks real from afar but disappears the closer you look. The ego clings to titles, labels, and opinions because it fears disappearance. It says, "If I don't win, I'm nothing. If they don't like me, I'm unworthy." But this constant need to prove and protect yourself becomes a prison. You spend your life trying to defend an identity that doesn't even exist. The Buddha's path invites you to see through this illusion, to recognize that beneath all the roles, the worker, the parent, the student, the friend, there is a pure awareness that remains untouched by the rise and fall of life. That awareness is your true self. When you cling to the ego, you react to everything. A small insult becomes an injury. A disagreement becomes a threat. You take everything personally because the ego survives on comparison. It cannot exist without conflict. It whispers, "You must be better than others," or you're not as good as them. Either way, it traps you in duality. Success and failure, pride and shame, love and rejection. But when you observe the ego instead of obeying it, you begin to rise above this duality. You start seeing that no external praise can increase your worth, and no criticism can diminish it. The ego screams for validation, but the soul whispers, "You are enough as you are." Letting go of ego is not about rejecting yourself. It's about returning to your natural state of humility and balance. True humility doesn't mean thinking less of yourself. It means thinking of yourself less. It means shifting your focus from self-importance to self-awareness. In this state, life becomes lighter. You no longer feel the need to compete or compare, because you realize that every being has their own unique journey. The flower doesn't envy the tree, nor does the ocean compare itself to the sky. They both exist in harmony, fulfilling their purpose without ego. When you let go of I and mine, you move from competition to connection. You begin to see yourself not as a separate entity, but as part of a vast, interconnected universe. Think of how much energy we waste defending our ego. We argue to be right, instead of to understand. We chase achievements to appear valuable, not because they bring meaning. We wear masks to impress others, only to feel empty inside. The Buddha once said, "Victory breeds hatred. The defeated live in pain. The peaceful live happily, giving up victory and defeat." This is what it means to transcend ego. To stop needing to win every argument, to stop proving your worth, to stop making life a competition. True peace comes not from standing above others, but from standing with them. When you begin to release the ego, you also release the constant noise in your mind. The need to be noticed, the urge to compare, the desire to control, they all fade. What remains is a quiet, grounded awareness that is content in simply being. You start to see beauty in simplicity, in breathing, in silence, in kindness. You stop chasing validation because you realize that no one else's opinion can define the truth of your existence. The ego wants recognition, but the soul wants freedom, and the two cannot coexist. In Buddhist meditation, practitioners often reflect on anatta, the principle of no self. This doesn't mean you don't exist. It means you are not limited to the story your mind tells about you. The body ages, the mind changes, the emotions come and go. But the consciousness that witnesses all of this remains untouched. When you understand that, the ego's grip weakens. You realize that you were never the name people call you, nor the titles you earned, nor the mistakes you made. You are the space in which all experiences rise and fall, vast, timeless, and free. Imagine a drop of water believing it is separate from the ocean. It fears evaporation, competition, and loss. But the moment it merges back into the sea, all fear dissolves, because it remembers it was never separate to begin with. That is what happens when you let go of your ego. You stop being a drop terrified of losing itself. And you remember you are the ocean. You were never meant to live in isolation from life. You were meant to flow with it. Letting go of ego also transforms how you love. When the ego loves, it loves with conditions. I'll love you if you love me back. But when the soul loves, it loves without calculation. It loves because that is its nature. Ego love seeks possession. Soul love seeks connection. When you stop seeing relationships as transactions and start seeing them as sacred mirrors for your growth, every encounter becomes a teacher. Every conflict becomes an opportunity to rise above yourself. The ego constantly asks, "What can I get?" The awakened heart asks, "What can I give?" When you begin to live from this place, joy no longer depends on outcomes. It becomes a quiet state of being. You find contentment not in applause but in alignment, not in praise but in peace. So let go of the illusion of me. Don't let pride, comparison, or the need to always be right steal your inner stillness. Life is not about proving your worth. It's about remembering it. The moment you release the ego, you become like a calm lake reflecting the sky, clear, peaceful, and infinite. You no longer react to the ripples of the world. You simply reflect its light. And in that stillness, you discover the greatest truth of all. You were never the mask you wore, never the story you defended, never the name you carried. You were always the silent awareness beneath it all, infinite, free, and unshakably whole. When you let go of your ego, you don't become less. You finally become everything. 6. Let go of resistance. Accept what is. Most people spend their entire lives wrestling with reality. They argue with circumstances, fight against change, and resist anything that doesn't fit the picture they had in their mind. They say things like, "This shouldn't have happened. Why me? Life isn't fair." But in that very resistance lies their suffering. The Buddha taught that pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. Pain is what life gives you. Suffering is what your mind creates when it refuses to accept it. Resistance is the root of that suffering. It's like holding a rope in a tug-of-war with life itself. The tighter you pull, the deeper the rope burns your hands. The moment you let go, the pain begins to ease. To accept what is does not mean to like it or to agree with it. It means to acknowledge that it exists, that it has already happened, that this moment is real. Many people confuse acceptance with surrendering to defeat. But in Buddhism, acceptance is not weakness. It is wisdom. It is the recognition that reality is already unfolding as it must, whether you approve of it or not. When you stop resisting the present, you align yourself with the truth, and peace naturally arises. As the Buddha said, peace comes from within. Do not seek it without. Resistance can take many forms. It can be the anger you feel towards someone who hurt you, the denial of a painful truth, or the anxiety that comes from wishing things were different. But every time you resist, you waste your life energy trying to fight what already is. Life becomes heavy, not because of what happens, but because of your unwillingness to let it be. Imagine standing in a river, trying to stop the water from flowing with your hands. No matter how hard you try, the current will continue. You will exhaust yourself until you realize the only way to move with life is to flow with it. Acceptance is not about apathy or giving up on change. It's about beginning change from a place of clarity rather than conflict. When you resist something, your mind becomes clouded by emotion. You can't see clearly because you're busy wishing it wasn't there. But when you accept the situation, yes, this is what's happening right now, you gain the mental space to respond wisely instead of reacting blindly. Acceptance turns chaos into clarity. It doesn't remove the storm, it helps you find stillness within it. In Buddhist practice, there's a term called upekkha, meaning equanimity, a calm balance of mind that arises when you stop judging reality as good or bad, and simply see it as it is. This doesn't mean you lose your humanity or your drive to improve life. It means you stop adding unnecessary resistance to what's already happening. You begin to trust that every moment, even the painful ones, contains something to teach you. The heartbreak teaches you compassion. The failure teaches you humility. The waiting teaches you patience. When you see life this way, nothing is wasted. Even your pain becomes sacred. Most of us resist because we crave control. We believe that if we just fight hard enough, we can make things go our way. But the truth is, life has its own intelligence. It knows when to open a door and when to close it. The universe is not punishing you when things fall apart. It is redirecting you. What you perceive as loss is often protection. What you call rejection is often redirection, but you can only see that once you stop fighting reality long enough to observe its pattern. Consider the lotus flower, one of the most sacred symbols in Buddhism. It grows from the mud, yet it blooms untouched by the dirt around it. The lotus does not resist the mud or curse the rain. It accepts them as part of its journey, knowing they are essential for its growth. Likewise, the challenges in your life are not obstacles. They are soil for your awakening. When you resist them, you get stuck in the mud. When you accept them, you begin to bloom. Acceptance also means letting go of the need to always be right, to always have answers, to always understand why things happen. Some moments in life are mysteries that reveal their purpose only in time. The ego demands an explanation. It wants closure, logic, control. But the soul understands that not everything is meant to be understood immediately. When you stop forcing answers, life slowly begins to unfold its wisdom in silence. You start to notice that even the most painful moments were guiding you toward deeper understanding, toward a more compassionate version of yourself. Resistance creates inner conflict. It splits you in two, one part of you fighting what is, and another part exhausted from the battle. Acceptance unites you again. It brings harmony between your inner world and the outer world. You stop saying, "This shouldn't be happening," and start asking, "What can I learn from this?" The moment you shift from resistance to curiosity, everything changes. The problem doesn't disappear, but your suffering does. You begin to see life not as an enemy, but as a teacher. There is an ancient Zen saying, "Let go or be dragged." That's what resistance does. It drags you through unnecessary pain. Life will move forward with or without your permission. The more you cling, the more it hurts. But when you let go, life carries you with grace. You begin to realize that everything happening is happening for you, not to you. Each event, no matter how uncomfortable, is shaping you into someone wiser, calmer, and freer. Acceptance doesn't mean that you never feel sadness or disappointment. Those emotions are part of being human. What it means is that you allow them to exist without trying to suppress or control them. You sit with your emotions, breathe through them, and let them pass naturally, like clouds drifting across the sky. You don't hold on to them or push them away. You simply observe, and in that observation, you find peace. When you let go of resistance, you free yourself from the constant struggle with what should be and return to what is. You begin to live with more ease, more flow, more grace. You stop seeing life as a series of battles and start seeing it as a dance, sometimes gentle, sometimes intense, but always purposeful. You learn to move with the rhythm instead of against it, and in that movement, peace becomes your natural state. So the next time life feels unfair or uncertain, pause, take a breath. Instead of saying, "Why is this happening to me?" ask, "What is this teaching me?" Trust that life knows the way. Every obstacle, every delay, every loss is guiding you toward alignment, even if you can't see it yet. The Buddha said, "In the end, these things matter most. How well did you love? How fully did you live? How deeply did you let go?" Letting go of resistance doesn't make life perfect. It makes you peaceful, and that peace is the highest form of strength. It's the power that allows you to stand in the middle of the storm and still smile, because you finally understand that the storm itself was never against you. It was always part of your awakening. 7. Let go of fear. That steps when you truly live. Fear is the invisible chain that binds the soul. It disguises itself as caution, logic, or responsibility, but at its core, it is resistance to life itself. Fear whispers to you when you're about to take a step forward. What if you fail? It pulls you back when love begins to grow. What if you get hurt again? It keeps you silent when your heart wants to speak. What will people think? Fear is not the voice of wisdom, it is the echo of the past, the residue of pain, the ghost of imagined suffering. It convinces you that safety is found in staying small, in not taking risks, in avoiding the unknown. But life, in its purest form, is always found beyond fear's boundaries. The Buddha taught that fear arises from attachment, attachment to comfort, to identity, to outcome. We fear loss because we cling to what we have. We fear death because we cling to life. We fear failure because we cling to our image of success. But once you understand impermanence, that everything including you is constantly changing, fear loses its power. When you realize there is nothing permanent to protect, you also realize there is nothing to fear. The world becomes lighter, and so do you. Fear has been a part of the human experience since the beginning. It once protected us from danger, the instinct to flee, to survive. But today, most of our fears are not about survival. They're about perception. We don't fear the tiger in the forest anymore. We fear judgment, rejection, embarrassment, and uncertainty. These are not physical threats. They're mental shadows. They exist only in your imagination. When you begin to see fear as a creation of the mind, you start to understand that it is not reality you're afraid of. It's your thoughts about reality. Letting go of fear doesn't mean you never feel it. It means you no longer obey it. You learn to move through fear with awareness rather than paralysis. The Buddha once said, "The whole secret of existence is to have no fear. Never fear what will become of you. Depend on no one. Only the moment you reject all help are you freed." This doesn't mean you isolate yourself. It means you stop depending on external guarantees for your peace. You trust the unfolding of life, even when the path ahead is unclear. Fear is like a wall built entirely from imagination. Every what if is a brick. What if I fail? What if they don't like me? What if I lose everything? But when you finally walk up to that wall, you realize it was never solid. It was made of mist. One breath of courage, and it begins to dissolve. The only thing that ever kept it standing was your belief in it. When you stop feeding fear with your attention, it cannot survive. Courage doesn't mean the absence of fear. It means choosing to walk forward even when fear is present. To look it in the eye and say, "You are not in control of me anymore." Fear is also born from the mind's need for certainty. We fear the unknown because the ego wants to predict, plan, and prepare for every outcome. But life is unpredictable, always was, always will be. To live without fear is to live with faith, not blind faith in destiny, but trust in your own ability to adapt, to grow, to rise again no matter what happens. It's the understanding that even when things fall apart, you remain whole, that even when life takes away something, it gives you something deeper in return. In Buddhist practice, monks often meditate on death, not out of morbidity, but out of liberation. To contemplate impermanence is to strip fear of its power. When you realize that every moment could be your last, you stop postponing your life. You stop waiting for the perfect time, the perfect conditions, the perfect courage. You start living now. You say the words you were too afraid to say. You chase the dreams you kept on hold. You love fully, knowing that everything is temporary, and that is what makes it precious. When fear governs your life, it steals your present. You stop seeing what's real, because you're always preparing for what might go wrong. But the mind's worst-case scenarios rarely ever happen. Most of your suffering comes not from actual experiences, but from imagined ones. Fear creates stories, endless stories about pain that hasn't even arrived. It makes you live through things twice, once in your mind and once in reality. And often the version in your mind is far worse. When you learn to observe fear without reacting to it, those stories lose their grip. You see fear for what it is, a thought, not a truth. Think of how many dreams die at the hands of fear, how many people stay in jobs they hate because they're afraid of failing at something new, how many hearts go unloved because someone feared rejection, how many words remain unspoken because someone feared judgment. Fear kills more possibilities than failure ever could. It convinces you that comfort equals safety, but comfort is often the most dangerous cage, silent, invisible, and easy to settle in. The longer you stay there, the smaller your world becomes. To let go of fear, you must first turn toward it, not to fight it, but to understand it. Ask yourself, what is this fear trying to protect? Every fear is rooted in love. Love for security, love for belonging, love for life itself. But when love becomes attachment, it transforms into fear. You can only dissolve it through awareness. The more you observe fear, the weaker it gets. You begin to notice that fear lives in the future. It cannot survive in the present. Right here, right now, you are breathing, you are safe, you are alive. That's reality. Everything else is just a projection of the mind. The practice of mindfulness is one of the most powerful ways to overcome fear. When you anchor yourself in the present moment, fear cannot find you. You stop spinning stories about what could go wrong and begin to experience what is happening. You feel your breath. You feel the ground beneath your feet. You feel the life pulsing through you, and in that awareness, fear begins to fade like a shadow under sunlight. There's a saying in Zen, let go or be dragged. Fear drags you through life, through anxiety, hesitation, and regret. But when you let go, you begin to glide. You stop overthinking every move, and you start trusting your inner rhythm. You make decisions not from panic, but from peace. You stop needing certainty to feel safe. You realize that security is not found in external control, but in inner calm. Letting go of fear also transforms how you love. Most people love with fear, fear of loss, fear of betrayal, fear of impermanence. That's why love becomes control, jealousy, or dependence. But true love in the Buddhist sense is fearless. It doesn't demand, it gives. It doesn't cling, it flows. It doesn't say, I need you to make me whole. It says, I am whole with you and without you. When you love without fear, you stop building walls. You allow connection to grow naturally. And even if it ends, you don't break. You expand. To live without fear is to live in full awareness of impermanence, to embrace every experience, every moment, every relationship with open hands. The hands that cling will always tremble. The hands that open will always receive. When you release fear, you begin to live not cautiously, but consciously. You see beauty even in uncertainty, because you understand that nothing beautiful ever stays, and that's what makes it sacred. So ask yourself, how many things have you delayed because of fear? How many times have you said, I'll do it when I'm ready? But what if ready never comes? What if fear is not something to wait out, but something to walk through? Courage is not the absence of trembling. It's the act of walking anyway. Every brave soul you've ever admired felt fear, but they didn't let it rule them. They bowed to it, thanked it for trying to protect them, and moved forward anyway. Life begins when fear ends. That doesn't mean the external world changes. It means your relationship with it does. You start seeing fear as a signal, not a stop sign. A signal that says, you're stepping into something new. You're expanding beyond what's familiar. And that's exactly where growth lives, just beyond the edge of fear. When you release fear, you return to the natural rhythm of life. You laugh more easily. You love more deeply. You breathe more freely. You start trusting that every path you walk, even the uncertain ones, will take you somewhere meaningful. And if you fall, you learn. If you lose, you grow. If you fail, you evolve. Fear may visit again. It always will, but it will no longer be your master. It will become a messenger, reminding you to wake up, to pay attention, to trust again. The Buddha once said, "To understand everything is to forgive everything." When you understand fear, you forgive it. 2. You realize it was never your enemy, only a misguided protector. It tried to keep you safe, but safety was never the goal. Growth was, freedom was, awakening was. So breathe deeply. Step forward even if your knees shake. Speak your truth, even if your voice trembles. Love even when it feels uncertain, because that is what it means to live. When you let go of fear, you stop merely surviving and start truly being. You stop existing as a bundle of defenses and start unfolding as awareness itself, vast, boundless, and unafraid. And one day you'll look back and realize that fear never really held you captive. You were always free. You just hadn't opened your hands yet. And let's go of the need for validation. Be enough for yourself. The human heart, in its deepest silence, longs to be seen. From childhood, we are shaped by approval, a parent's smile, a teacher's praise, a friend's acceptance. Somewhere along the way, that longing becomes dependency. We start chasing validation like a traveler chasing mirages across a desert. Every compliment feels like water, but it evaporates quickly, leaving us thirstier than before. The Buddha taught that craving, not circumstance, is the source of suffering. And the craving for validation, to be liked, admired, recognized, may be the most subtle yet destructive of all. Validation feels good because it touches the ego, the false sense of I. When someone praises you, the ego expands. When they criticize you, it contracts. Your peace rises and falls like a tide moved by other people's moods. This is the silent slavery of modern life. Living for eyes, for likes, for applause, for approval. But what happens when no one notices? When your efforts are unseen? When the world turns its back? Most people panic because they've built their self-worth on unstable ground. But when you let go of the need for validation, you step into unshakable freedom. You stop performing and start living. The Buddha's path to liberation begins with self-awareness, recognizing that the self you are trying to prove doesn't truly exist. The more you chase validation, the further you drift from your authentic being. You become a reflection of others' expectations, molding yourself to please everyone, forgetting who you really are. You lose your spontaneity, your originality, your voice. You begin to live in fear of disapproval, of being misunderstood, of standing alone. But solitude is not emptiness, it's truth. It's where you discover that you were always complete, even before anyone noticed you. Think of how much energy is wasted in trying to be enough for others. You dress, speak, act, and even think in ways that align with what's popular, accepted, or applauded. But the more you seek external validation, the more you betray your inner compass. You start asking, do they like me, instead of do I respect myself? The Buddha said, you yourself, as much as anybody in the entire universe, deserve your love and affection. When you realize that, you no longer beg for approval, you begin to live from your own center. The craving for validation is like trying to fill a bottomless jar with rainwater. No matter how much you collect, it will never be enough. Because the hole, the sense of incompleteness, is internal. Approval from others may momentarily soothe your insecurity, but it cannot heal it. True healing begins when you look within and see that you are already whole. You do not need to prove your worth to anyone, because your existence is proof enough. The trees do not seek permission to grow, nor do the stars ask for applause to shine. They simply exist in alignment with their nature. So should you. When you live for validation, every criticism becomes a wound. Someone's opinion becomes your truth. Someone's rejection becomes your reflection. You become fragile, constantly anxious, constantly performing. But when you no longer depend on validation, you become grounded. Praise doesn't inflate you, and criticism doesn't deflate you. You remain steady like a mountain in all weathers. Calm, still, unbothered. That is what Buddhist detachment truly means. Not indifference, but inner stability. You stop reacting to every ripple in the surface of the mind, and you start resting in the stillness beneath. Many people fear losing validation because they confuse it with connection. They believe, if I don't meet expectations, I'll be abandoned. But authentic connection doesn't require performance. It requires truth. When you are real, you attract those who resonate with your authenticity. When you are fake, you attract those who are drawn to your mask, and masks always fall eventually. The Buddha often emphasized samavaka, or right speech, which means speaking truthfully, without pretense or manipulation. The same principle applies to your entire being. Live truthfully, even if it means being misunderstood. It's better to walk alone in truth than to be surrounded by approval built on lies. Letting go of validation also means learning to be misunderstood without anxiety. The mind wants to control how others perceive us, but perception is beyond our control. You cannot make someone see you accurately. You can only be true to who you are. People will always interpret you through the lens of their own experience. Some will admire you for what others condemn you for. That's why peace cannot depend on opinion. It must be rooted in self-understanding. When you know your intentions are pure, you don't need to explain yourself endlessly. The truth does not shout. It simply stands. There is a quiet beauty in not needing to be seen. In a world obsessed with attention, invisibility becomes liberation. The Buddha walked barefoot, ate simply, spoke softly. He didn't chase crowds. He radiated presence. People came to him not because he sought them, but because peace cannot be hidden. When you stop trying to impress, you begin to express. Your actions flow naturally from inner clarity, not from a desire to be liked. You start creating, loving, working, and serving, not to gain something, but because that's who you are. That's authenticity. Living in alignment with your inner truth, regardless of external noise. The path to self-acceptance often begins in solitude. When you detach from constant social comparison, you begin to hear your own thoughts again. You start to see the ways you've abandoned yourself just to be accepted. You realize that every time you changed your opinions, silenced your feelings, or ignored your needs to keep others comfortable, you were slowly teaching yourself that your truth doesn't matter. But it does. You cannot build peace on the foundation of self-betrayal. When you finally start honoring your own values, even when no one claps for you, you reclaim your dignity. You begin to live with quiet self-respect, a form of peace that no amount of praise could ever match. Letting go of validation also means forgiving yourself. The craving for approval often comes from old wounds, moments when you were made to feel unworthy, unseen, or unloved. Those experiences carve deep patterns into the mind. The inner child learns that love must be earned, that worth must be proven. But now, as an awakened adult, you can break that cycle. You can give yourself the unconditional acceptance you've been begging others for. You can whisper to your own heart, I see you, you're doing enough. You are enough. That simple act of self-compassion is the beginning of true freedom. In Buddhist meditation, practitioners often observe their thoughts as clouds drifting through the sky, temporary, passing, unreal. In the same way, opinions are just mental clouds floating in other people's skies. They don't define you. You are the sky itself, vast, infinite, unchanged. The more you realize this, the less you need anyone to tell you who you are. You become free of judgment, both from others and from yourself. You stop labeling every experience as success or failure, right or wrong. You begin to see life as it is, a dance of constant change, and yourself as the witness to it all. Freedom from validation doesn't make you cold or detached. It makes you kind. When you no longer need others' approval, you can love them without agenda. You stop treating people as mirrors for your ego and start seeing them as fellow travelers on the same path of imperfection. You stop seeking recognition and start offering understanding. Your relationships become lighter because they are no longer transactions. They become sacred because they are built on authenticity. There's a profound peace in doing good quietly, in creating, helping, loving without an audience. When your motivation comes from sincerity rather than recognition, your energy becomes pure. You stop needing applause to feel valuable because your worth is self-sustaining. The Buddha said, "Better than 1,000 hollow words is one word that brings peace." Likewise, better than 1,000 empty praises is one moment of genuine self-acceptance. When you finally let go of the need for validation, life becomes simple again. You start living according to your own rhythm, your own truth. You stop chasing and start existing. You begin to see that the only approval worth having is from the quiet voice inside that says, "You did your best. You stayed true. You remained kind." And in that moment, all external noise fades. You no longer need to be seen, because you see yourself clearly. So release the need to prove, to impress, to be liked. You are not here to fit into everyone's idea of who you should be. You are here to evolve, to awaken, to live in harmony with your inner truth. Some will misunderstand you, some will doubt you, some will walk away. Let them. Their approval was never the source of your peace. Your peace comes from knowing that you are walking your path sincerely, guided by wisdom, anchored in self-respect. When you stop chasing validation, you gain something far greater: authenticity. You begin to live not for the world's applause, but for your soul's alignment. You find that quiet joy of being your truest self, unfiltered, unperformed, unafraid. And in that stillness, something extraordinary happens. The world begins to respect you not because you sought it, but because you no longer need it. You become like the mountain, unmoved by praise, unshaken by criticism, standing firm in silent strength. You no longer need to be anyone else's idea of worthy because you finally realized you always were. 9. Let go of the outcome. Trust the process of life. One of the greatest sources of human suffering is our obsession with how things will turn out. We plan, we strive, we hope, we pray, and then we hold our breath, waiting for life to deliver the result we've imagined. We tie our peace to the end of the story, believing we can only relax once everything unfolds exactly as we planned. But life doesn't operate on our schedule. It doesn't follow our maps or bend to our expectations. It moves like a vast, mysterious ocean, sometimes calm, sometimes stormy, always deeper than we can see. The Buddha taught that attachment to outcomes is one of the subtlest forms of craving. The moment you cling to a specific result, you begin to suffer, because the mind starts living in the future, detached from the serenity of the present. We are taught from childhood that success lies in control, in setting goals and achieving them. But control is an illusion. You can plant the seed, but you cannot command it to bloom. You can give your best effort, but you cannot guarantee the outcome. When you attach your happiness to results, You set yourself up for constant anxiety. Even when things go right, you fear losing them. When they go wrong, you feel defeated. But when you let go of outcomes and focus instead on the process, life becomes lighter. You discover peace, not at the finish line, but in every step of the journey. The Buddha once compared the mind to a monkey jumping from one branch of desire to another, always chasing what's next, never resting in what is. That's how we live when we're attached to outcomes. We're always reaching for a better future, the better job, the better relationship, the better version of ourselves, believing peace will finally arrive then. But peace isn't waiting at the end of the road. It's found in the way you walk it. When you stop gripping so tightly to the outcome, you begin to notice the beauty of each moment, the small victories, the lessons in failure, the growth hidden in uncertainty. Letting go of outcomes doesn't mean you stop caring or stop trying. It means you give your full heart to the present without demanding a specific return. It means acting from sincerity rather than desperation. You still aim high, but you stop defining your worth by whether you hit the target. The Buddha called this practice right effort, working diligently, not out of attachment, but out of alignment. When you give your best from a place of inner stillness, whatever happens afterward no longer shakes your peace. Success and failure become equal teachers, both guiding you toward wisdom. Many people believe that control equals safety, but in truth, it creates tension. When you fixate on an outcome, you close yourself off to all the other possibilities life could offer. You tell the universe, it has to be this way, or I'll be unhappy. But life often has greater plans than the ones you can imagine. What looks like failure might be redirection. What feels like loss might be preparation. What appears to be delay might be divine timing. You can only see this when you stop resisting and start trusting. Think of a farmer planting seeds. He does not dig them up every day to check if they're growing. He waters them, tends to them, and trusts the process. The sun will rise, the rain will fall, and nature will take care of the rest. But most of us live like anxious farmers. We plant a dream, and then constantly dig it up with worry, asking, when will it grow? What if it doesn't? What if I fail? This restlessness destroys peace. The truth is, your job is to plant, nurture, and act with faith, not to control the timing of the harvest. Letting go of outcomes also means releasing the illusion of permanence. Every experience, every relationship, every success, and every failure is temporary. You can't hold on to joy any more than you can hold on to sorrow. Both pass through you like seasons. The Buddha said, everything that has a beginning has an ending. Make your peace with that, and all will be well. When you accept impermanence, you stop clinging to the need for everything to turn out a certain way. You begin to understand that life's beauty lies not in certainty, but in flow. When you live without attachment to outcomes, something miraculous happens. You rediscover the joy of doing for its own sake. You write because you love to express, not because you need recognition. You work because it brings meaning, not because you need approval. You help others because kindness feels natural, not because you expect gratitude. This is what it means to live in alignment with Dharma, your true path. When your actions flow from inner peace rather than external pressure, the results take care of themselves. Letting go of outcomes also frees you from disappointment. Most people suffer not because life is cruel, but because they expected it to be different. The mind creates an ideal picture of how things should be, and when reality doesn't match, we feel betrayed. But reality was never wrong, only our expectations were. Acceptance is the bridge between desire and peace. It doesn't mean you stop striving, it means you stop fighting what already is. When you work hard and still face loss, you learn resilience. When you give love and it isn't returned, you learn self-worth. When plans collapse, you learn surrender. Every outcome, whether pleasant or painful, carries wisdom, but you can only see it when you stop labeling it as success or failure. To truly let go of outcomes, you must develop faith, not blind faith in luck, but deep faith in the intelligence of life itself. Look at nature. Every sunrise arrives on time without your control. Every tree grows toward the light without your guidance. Life is not random chaos. It is organized harmony. When you trust that harmony, you stop grasping at control. You start moving with life instead of against it. The mind relaxes. The body softens. The soul finally breathes. Fear often disguises itself as planning. We say, "I just want to be prepared," but preparation rooted in fear becomes obsession. We plan every detail, trying to secure an outcome, but no matter how well we plan, uncertainty remains. The only thing you can control is your effort and your attitude. Everything else belongs to life. When you accept that truth, you experience freedom unlike anything else. You realize that peace doesn't come from perfect conditions. It comes from perfect surrender. The Buddha used the metaphor of an arrow to describe suffering. The first arrow is what life throws at you: pain, loss, disappointment. The second arrow is self-inflicted. The endless rumination, the why me, the attachment to what could have been. The first arrow is unavoidable. The second is optional. When you let go of outcomes, you stop shooting yourself with the second arrow. You allow events to unfold without adding unnecessary suffering through resistance and overthinking. Letting go also means accepting that you might never see the full picture. Sometimes the results of your actions unfold far beyond your awareness. A kind word you said years ago may still be echoing in someone's heart. A small failure today might save you from a greater one tomorrow. The web of cause and effect is too vast for the human mind to comprehend. So trust that your efforts matter, even if you never see their fruits. In Buddhism, there is a term called karma yoga, the practice of selfless action. It means doing what needs to be done without attachment to the results. When you act from this space, your energy becomes pure, your work becomes effortless, and your heart becomes light. You stop asking, "What will I get?" and start asking, "How can I give?" And paradoxically, that's when life begins to reward you abundantly, not because you demanded it, but because you aligned yourself with the flow of giving. Letting go of outcomes also liberates you from the fear of failure. Failure only hurts when your identity depends on success. When you see every experience as part of the journey, you realize there's no failure, only feedback, only evolution. Every step, even the missteps, moves you forward. You stop measuring life by wins and losses and start measuring it by wisdom gained. You stop chasing perfection and start embracing progress. So breathe. Stop overanalyzing every path and outcome. Do your part with sincerity, with love, with discipline, and then release the rest. Let life take its natural course. You don't need to control the wind. You just need to adjust your sails. The universe has its own rhythm, and it always carries you where you're meant to go, even if the route feels uncertain. Remember, the river doesn't stress about reaching the ocean. It flows naturally, trusting that every twist and turn is part of the journey. You are that river. Let yourself flow. When you stop gripping the outcome, you start gliding effortlessly through life. You begin to find beauty even in uncertainty, peace even in change, and joy even in endings. When you let go of the outcome, you finally return to the essence of life, pure presence. You begin to act not from fear of what might happen, but from love for what is happening. You begin to live not as a controller of life, but as a participant in its unfolding. You start trusting the invisible current that has guided every sunrise, every heartbeat, every moment of your existence. And in that trust, you discover something timeless. That peace has never been waiting at the end of your plans. It's been here all along, in the space between effort and surrender, in the quiet breath that whispers. You don't have to know how the story ends. You only have to keep showing up with faith. 10. Let go of the past versions of yourself. Evolve without fear. One of the hardest things to let go of is not other people, not possessions, not even the past itself. It's the version of you that no longer fits the person you are becoming. We cling to who we once were because it feels familiar, safe, defined. The old you, with all its habits, dreams and labels, feels like home, even when that home has grown too small for your soul. The Buddha taught that life is a continuous process of change, and yet the human mind fears change more than anything. You want growth, but you also want to stay comfortable. You crave transformation, but you also cling to identity. That's the paradox that keeps you stuck. You want to become something new without releasing who you used to be. Letting go of old versions of yourself is an act of courage. It means accepting that the person you were yesterday might not align with the wisdom you've gained today. It means understanding that evolution requires endings, the ending of old thought patterns, old dreams, old definitions of success. We live in a world that romanticizes consistency. Be who you are. Stay true to yourself. But who you are is not static. It's fluid. To stay true in the deepest sense means to stay true to your growth, not your past. The Buddha once said, "Just as a snake sheds its skin, we must shed our past over and over again." That's the essence of liberation. To evolve freely, without fear, without apology. Every stage of your life created a version of you that was necessary for that moment. The person you were at 10, 20, or 30 was doing the best they could with what they knew. Those versions helped you survive, learn, and adapt. But clinging to them after they've served their purpose only limits you. You can't climb the next mountain while holding on to the last. Sometimes the very identity that once gave you strength becomes the weight that holds you down. You must learn to thank your old self for getting you here, and then release them with love. In Buddhism, impermanence, anicca, is one of the core truths of existence. Everything is constantly changing, including you. The cells in your body, the thoughts in your mind, the emotions in your heart, all are in motion, yet we cling to the illusion of a fixed self. We say, "This is who I am," as if it could never change. But that's like trying to freeze a river. The moment you define yourself too tightly, you stop flowing. You start living according to an outdated script, replaying the same habits, the same fears, the same limitations, even when your soul is ready to write a new story. Letting go of old versions of yourself requires deep honesty. You must ask, am I living according to who I was, or who I'm becoming? Many people hold on to their past out of guilt. Guilt for outgrowing friends, for changing beliefs, for no longer enjoying what they used to. But growth often feels like betrayal to the past. It's not betrayal, it's evolution. You're not abandoning who you were, you're integrating what you learned and allowing it to mature into something higher. The caterpillar doesn't betray itself by becoming a butterfly. It fulfills its purpose. We often mistake comfort for identity. We say, "I've always been this way," as if that were a reason to stay small. But comfort zones are like cages made of gold. They feel safe, but confine your spirit. You were not created to stay the same. You were created to unfold, to expand, to deepen. The process of shedding your old self is not easy. It can feel like a kind of death, because in many ways it is. You're dying to who you were so you can be reborn as who you're meant to be. The ego resists this because it fears the unknown. It says, if I let go of who I am, who will I be? But the soul whispers, you will be free. Think about how often you hold yourself hostage to past mistakes. You keep revisiting them, defining yourself by them, as if your worst moments deserve to narrate your entire story. But every experience, no matter how painful, was just one page, not the whole book. The Buddha taught that nothing is ever wasted on the path of awakening. Even your mistakes were teachers in disguise. The pain you regret so deeply may have been the very fire that burned away illusions, the storm that cleared your path. When you forgive your past self, you make space for a wiser version of you to emerge. Letting go of who you were also means letting go of the labels you've worn. The strong one, the quiet one, the successful one, the broken one. Every label creates a limitation. You start performing those identities out of habit rather than authenticity. But you are not any one thing. You are infinite possibilities unfolding moment by moment. The Buddha didn't call for self-improvement. He called for self-liberation, freedom from all fixed ideas of self. When you stop clinging to labels, you become fluid again, like water, taking the shape of every moment, adapting, growing, alive. Sometimes the past version of you still echoes in your mind, the one who was hurt, rejected, or overlooked. That version still lives in your memory, still reacts in fear, still expects pain. But that's not who you are anymore. You've healed, you've grown, you've learned. Every time you respond differently, with more calm, more wisdom, more compassion, you're proving that the old you no longer runs your life. Healing is not forgetting. It's remembering without being controlled. It's saying, yes, that happened, but I am not that story anymore. The process of transformation can feel lonely. When you outgrow your old self, you often outgrow people, places, and habits that match that version. This is natural. When a tree grows taller, some branches must fall away. You don't need to chase what falls. You need to nourish what's growing. Many people will try to remind you of who you used to be, not because they mean harm, but because it's how they recognize you. Smile gently, but don't shrink to fit their memory. You are not obligated to stay small so others can stay comfortable. Buddhism teaches the importance of non-attachment, not just to material things but to identity itself. When you practice non-attachment to your own story, you become flexible, open, alive. You begin to understand that every version of you, the confident one, the broken one, the brave one, the lost one, is just a wave in the ocean of your being. None of them define you permanently. They rise, they fall, and they pass. What remains is awareness, timeless, pure, untouched by change. When you identify with that awareness instead of your shifting roles, you find peace. Letting go of past versions of yourself also means releasing the constant pressure to be consistent. The mind loves consistency because it feels safe, predictable, but real growth often looks inconsistent. Sometimes you're strong, sometimes fragile, sometimes certain, sometimes confused. That's okay. A seed doesn't sprout overnight. There are seasons of growth and seasons of rest, and both are sacred. The goal is not to be unchanging. The goal is to evolve gracefully with change. If you look closely, nature mirrors this truth everywhere. The moon changes shape every night, but never loses its essence. The ocean waves rise and fall, yet the sea remains whole. Trees shed their leaves each autumn, not because they are dying, but because they trust that new leaves will come. Likewise, every time you let go of an old version of yourself, you are not losing, you are making room for renewal. To evolve is to trust that you are being guided by something greater than your fear. The Buddha said, "No one saves us but ourselves." No one can, and no one may. We ourselves must walk the path. The journey is yours alone, but the wisdom of the universe supports every step. You don't need to know where it leads. You only need to keep walking with openness. Every time you shed an old identity, you take one step closer to freedom, the freedom of not needing to be anything fixed, just fully alive in the unfolding. So, let go of the past you, the one who always doubted, who always apologized, who always settled. Let go of the image you built to survive. You don't need it anymore. You are not who you were. You are who you are becoming. Don't mourn your evolution. Celebrate it. Every ending within you is a sacred beginning. Every time you release a layer, your light grows brighter. And when you look back years from now, you'll smile with gentle gratitude at all the versions of yourself that once carried you. The one who tried, the one who cried, the one who kept going. They were all stepping stones, each necessary, each beautiful in its own way. But the true self, the awareness watching it all, was never bound by any of them. It was always infinite, unchanging, free. The Buddha taught that awakening is not about becoming someone new, but about realizing you were never the illusion you believed yourself to be. When you finally let go of who you think you are supposed to be, you return to who you truly are, vast, limitless consciousness, flowing effortlessly through the ever-changing river of existence. So breathe deeply, release the weight of your old self. You don't need to fit the image of yesterday's you. You are not a fixed identity, you are a living, breathing transformation. Every breath is a new beginning. Every sunrise is an invitation to evolve again. Let the old you dissolve into gratitude, and let your new self rise, lighter, wiser, freer. Because the truth is, you were never meant to stay the same. You were meant to unfold, infinitely. Letting go is not about losing everything, it's about remembering what you were never meant to carry. Every teaching, every insight, every truth you've read through these lessons points toward one simple yet profound realization. Peace does not come from control, from holding tighter, from knowing every answer. Peace comes when you release the weight of what no longer serves your becoming. We spend our lives gripping so hard, gripping identities, expectations, people, dreams, fears, timelines, and yet the tighter we hold, the more life slips through our fingers, like water. Existence cannot be held by force. It can only be felt through openness. The Buddha's wisdom echoes softly across the ages. In the end, only three things matter: how much you loved, how gently you lived, and how gracefully you let go of things not meant for you. Letting go is not weakness. It is the highest form of strength, the courage to stand unguarded in the face of change. It is trusting the unseen current that has always carried you through heartbreak, through rebirth, through every silent dawn that followed your darkest night. When you let go, you stop fighting the river. You become the river. You move effortlessly with life, instead of against it. Every breath is an invitation to practice this truth. Inhale and receive the present moment. Exhale and release what you can't control. In that rhythm lies the entire essence of spiritual freedom. The mind may resist, but the soul always knows. Nothing real can ever be lost, and nothing lost was ever truly yours. To let go is to live. To surrender is to awaken. To trust the flow of life is to rediscover that the peace you were searching for was never at the end of the struggle. It was waiting beneath it, calm and eternal, inside the stillness of your own heart. When you finally stop holding on, you realize something extraordinary. Life has always known the way. It was never asking you to control it, only to walk beside it, with open hands, open heart, and an unshakable faith in the beauty of letting go.